Hello, good afternoon. I'm KHU11 Meteorologist Chris Ramirez. We are tracking the latest when it comes to our anticipated winter storm that's expected to impact all of Texas, including us here across the Houston area. The National Weather Service has upgraded several winter weather alerts that have been in place. We are now going to be under a winter storm warning. That's going to be from 6 a.m. Saturday through 6 p.m. Sunday. We could see some light to moderate icing possible, so definitely be on the lookout for extremely cold temperatures as well as the ice accumulations that could impact travel. Where you see the areas highlighted in pink, that's under that winter storm warning. We were under a winter storm watch previously. We are also tracking our extreme cold warning that's now in place. We were under extreme cold watch, now we're under an extreme cold warning because we are expecting dangerously life-threatening feels-like temps as we head into the early hours of Monday. Feels-like temps ranging between 5 degrees and 15 degrees, and that's when you factor in the freezing temperatures as well as the wind speeds heading into the start of next week. So the worst of the cold, the coldest of these temps is going to be occurring on Monday morning. And so definitely you want to wrap those pipes at home, dress in layers, protect yourself from the elements, especially if you are heading out and about. However, we're going to start seeing the impacts of this storm as early as Saturday night into Sunday. Folks that are in north of Houston, it does include Huntsville, Livingston, even portions of Polk and San Jacinto County. They were under an ice storm warning, and this is all thanks to the possibility that we could see some higher ice accumulations in these areas that you see highlighted in purple. That doesn't mean that we're not going to get any ice in Houston, but we could see dangerously ice accumulations expected across Livingston along the I-69 corridor as well as along I-45 up north towards the Dallas-Fort Worth area. So as we look at our winter storm timeline, the timeline has not changed at all, at least for the last 24 to 48 hours. We are expecting much of Saturday to be above freezing. We're going to still see some rain, but you want to be off the roads between 5 and 6 p.m., especially as those temps will start falling through the overnight hours. So it's going to be overnight Saturday into early Sunday morning is when we're going to start seeing that freezing rain. That really is a worse situation when it comes to winter precipitation, because the freezing rain is what causes those icy roadways, icy bridges and overpasses. You don't want to be out on the streets, especially as we head into Sunday. And then by 12 p.m. Sunday, the precipitation very well likely ending, but our temps are only going to be above freezing for briefly going into Sunday afternoon. And then by Monday morning, we could see those temps drop into the 20s. I wouldn't be surprised if we actually see those temps in the teens in some locations. And as when you factor in the wind chills, it's going to feel like the teens to single digits in some locations, especially early Wednesday or Monday morning rather. So looking at our Futuretrack, this is showing you exactly what I just mentioned, but of course in our radar form. We are expecting temps to remain mostly warm. We will see some periods of brief heavy rain heading into Saturday morning, but our temps are going to remain above freezing into the 50s. We're going to still see somewhat warm conditions heading into Saturday afternoon. It's when we head into Saturday night is when those temps north of Houston are going to drop into about freezing or below. That's 32 degrees or below, and that's when we could start seeing that precipitation start switching over to freezing precipitation while it's still going to be pretty wet here across the Houston area. It's not going to be until really 5 to 6 a.m. is when our temperatures here closer to Houston will start dropping to about freezing, and that's when we're going to have to worry about the potential for some of that frozen precipitation or that freezing rain to occur as we go into the early hours of Sunday. And so if this does play out, the latest that we've seen with this situation is that our weather models are showing a little bit cooler temperatures as we head into the early hours of Sunday. We're now looking at temps in the 20s for Sunday morning, and that's really not good news for us as we could see that that precipitation change over to freezing precipitation a little bit sooner, especially as we head into the early hours of Sunday. So this is not really a good outcome for us here across the Houston area, especially as that precipitation is expected to last at least through the early part of Sunday afternoon. And so definitely expecting those conditions to remain mostly a bit warm for now until Saturday, but radar right now showing mostly clear conditions, not seeing any rain on radar, but that's not the situation out towards the west. I'm going to go ahead and show you what's taking place. They're already looking at winter precipitation happening in the Panhandle, especially across Lubbock. So it's this big system here that's going to start pushing in towards over Texas, and that is going to be the cause of this winter storm that we've been talking about for the past past several days. So looking at our ice accumulations, the weekend ice potential, it's going to be pretty icy. We have worse conditions expected out in central and north Texas, but looking closer towards the Houston area. Yesterday, we were just close to 1/10 of an inch. Our latest ice accumulation models are showing a little bit higher accumulations. We're about 0.13, about 1/4 of an inch, especially out in Huntsville. That's really not good news. That could impact some power lines, as well as those roadways, as well as causing tree damage for areas north of Houston, especially out in Huntsville and towards Lufkin, even Palestine. But we are going to see this ice accumulation, and that very well is going to impact those elevated bridges and overpasses here across town. And so how much ice does it take? You might be asking yourself, why are we showing you ice accumulations with these decimal points? Well, when we get close to a trace to 1/4 of an inch of ice, that it does create dangerous travel. Any ice accumulations on those bridges or overpasses could cause sliding with your vehicles. 0.25, 1/4 inch to 0.75, we are looking at impossible travel, some tree damage and power outages. This is really what's expected to happen for areas north of Houston. That includes Huntsville, even portions of in around the Cleveland area. We're going to get about a trace to 1/4 of an inch, by about 1/10 of an inch for us here across town. And over 0.75 inches, we are expected widespread tree damage as well as power outages. I don't think we're going to see that here across Houston, but of course, these ice accumulation models, not too reliable when it comes to forecasting for these events, especially for us here across the Gulf Coast. So when it comes to those icy bridges and overpasses, just keep in mind, every freeway here across Houston does rise in the air at some point. When you have that air flowing beneath, you usually see the first things to change over to freezing at first, and so that's why we usually start seeing those ice accumulations happen along those elevated bridges and overpasses a lot sooner than we do for the rest of the area. So looking at our future winds are going to be out of the north between 10 to 14 miles an hour, and so definitely expecting those wind accumulate or those wind speeds to really cause the feels like temps to really be feeling like it's in the teens across our area, especially as we head into early Monday morning. So as we look at our future wind chill, this is what we're looking at in terms of Monday morning. This is going to feel like 17 at Bush Airport, Conroe at 12 degrees, College Station at 5, Brenham at 6 degrees. And I know we talk about wind chill, but when it comes to wind chill, that really does play a role on how your body loses the heat. So you might be asking yourself, why do we talk about wind chill? Why do we just say the actual temperatures? Because usually when we have cold and calm nights with no wind speeds, we have an insulated layer just surrounding our bodies, and that does a good job at keeping us warm. However, when you have super cold conditions and you add in the wind, that strips that outer insulated layer, and then heat is removed, this makes your body lose heat a lot faster, and that could ramp up the process when it comes to those cold-related illnesses like hypothermia, especially as we deal with the wind chill factor. So that's really not good news in terms of what we're expecting to see as we head into Monday. So looking at our future track, much of Texas expected to be impacted by this winter storm within the next couple of days. Saturday morning is when we could start seeing that frozen precipitation start switching over from portions of northwest Texas out towards the Dallas-Fort Worth area as early as tomorrow morning. And then for us here across Houston, we will start seeing our impacts from this as early as overnight Saturday into Sunday, as our temps are going to be about 35, eventually dropping to about 29 degrees, especially for Sunday morning. And that's really could bring us our fair share of ice accumulations here across town. A lot of folks are asking, are we going to see snow here in Houston? Not likely. We have a very shallow layer of warm air that's closer to our surface that's going to keep it at freezing rain rather than snowfall, which usually they're expected to see up north towards the Dallas-Fort Worth area. So it's going to be mostly an ice threat for us here across the Houston area. So we are increasing that forecast confidence in terms of the ice accumulations. This basically means that we are more convinced that our forecast for ice is increasing for us as we head into Sunday, throughout the day Sunday into the later hours of Sunday, as those temps are expected to not really warm up all that much for Sunday. So we're looking at a good 2 days of freezing temperatures here, but we will warm up briefly during those afternoon hours. It's the overnight and morning temperatures that we're really going to have to be keeping an eye on, especially as sometimes we could be in the 20s as well as in the teens in some of those locations. So temps quickly warming up back into the 50s and 60s by Tuesday and Wednesday. Models are also showing that we are expecting to see rather just warmer conditions by the end of the week. So it's just going to be Saturday, Sunday, Monday, mostly Sunday and Monday when we're going to have to really deal with these freezing temperatures here across the Houston area. So as far as your 7-day forecast, we are going to be under that weather impact alert from Saturday through Sunday, lasting through Monday here across Houston, as temps are going to start plummeting into the 20s for Saturday night into Sunday, but we're going to have a rather wet Saturday. So I think if you are making those necessary preparations and when it comes to winterizing your home, you might want to do that today, because tomorrow looks pretty wet and rainy for us here across the Houston area and across southeast Texas. And then Sunday is when we're going to be looking at that ice threat, mainly in the morning hours. And then going into Monday, hard freeze, very well likely, but that's the wind chill factor. The coldest of the temperatures are going to be Monday morning as we head into the start of the week, and then warming up into the 50s and 60s as we head into Wednesday. So that's the latest update when it comes to our anticipated winter weather storm that's expected to impact us here across the Houston area and across Texas. We are always keeping you up to date on KHOU.com and on the KHOU 11 app. Make sure to stay tuned on KHOU 11 Plus at 4 p.m. for the latest news and weather headlines. Again, I'm meteorologist Chris Ramirez with your winter weather update and forecast for us here across Houston.